In this lecture, let's try to understand what are the different components involved inside the OAuth2 framework. Like whenever someone want to adopt the OAuth2 framework, so these are all the components which will be involved inside the authentication and authorization flow. The very first one that we are discussing previously is the authorization server. So authorization server is the one which is stay isolated and responsible to validate user authentication and authorization. Post validating that, it has to issue a token. And resource server is a server where all the protected resources of an user, like my credit card details, my account details, will be stored inside a database which can be accessed by resource server only, and this resource server will give the protected resource to someone only if they provide a valid token. It will never ask you the username and credentials. It will always ask you the token, and the same token the resource server will get validated with the authorization server. In case there is no token available, it's responsible of the developer or architects to detect that and redirect to auth server to perform the login operation. And the third component is the resource owner or the user, we call it as. Like if I am using a tweet analyzer app or EasyBank application, I am the resource owner. I own the resources which are staying inside the database, like my account, my credit card details, or the tweets that I have made inside the Twitter application. So those are the protected resources. Since I own them, I'll become the resource owner or the user. And the last component is the client. So client is an application which want to access the resources owned by an user on their behalf. Like in the tweet analyzer app, the tweet analyzer is the client. I am the resource owner, and authorization server and resource server is the Twitter application. So if you look at the sample OAuth2 flow in the tweet analyzer app, you can see the very first component is the resource owner or the user, which is me who is trying to use the tweet analyzer app. When I go to tweet analyzer app, like I want you to analyze my tweets, tweet analyzer app, which is a client in this scenario, will ask me, okay, I will redirect you to the Twitter authorization server. You have to enter your credentials there to prove your identity. And once your identity is proved, the Twitter authorization server will issue a token to me. But in this scenario, the client will never ask the Twitter credentials directly. It will redirect you to the authorization server of the Twitter. So once client receives the token, the same token the tweet analyzer app, which is client here, will send to the resource server of the Twitter to get the resources like my tweets, retweets, how many likes I received, comments, all those resources from the resource server. So in this flow, the resource server will validate the token issued by the auth server is a valid or not by connecting with the auth server. And we can see what are different ways to establish a connection between auth server and resource server in the coming lectures. But now let's assume like every time you send a token to the resource server, it will connect to the auth server to validate it. So in this way, all the components that involved in the OAuth2 flow will make our authentication and authorization flow smooth enough by following the industry standards. As you can see, next time if I go to the tweet analyzer app again or making any actions in the tweet analyzer app application, it don't ask me credentials again and again because I already gave my credentials to the Twitter authorization server and received a token. The same token will be leveraged by the tweet analyzer app, and you can also see Twitter also decouple their authentication flow and business logic into two different servers, which is authorization server and resource server. So let's try to go to any websites that we use on day-to-day basis and try to understand how this OAuth2 flow works by trying to log in and signing up over the website. For the same, I came to our most common favorite website of for all our developers, which is Stack Overflow. You can see here, I just came to this website very first time and I never had a login into this application. Obviously, if you log in into this application or sign up into this application, you have advantage like posting your answers or liking someone answers or posting questions. So all those extra features someone can leverage inside Stack Overflow only if they are logging into this application. So obviously when I click sign up, you can see here there are two ways. One is the traditional way where I can enter my email, password, name and register myself. Post that Stack Overflow will ask me to validate my email by sending a verification link. But this is a time consuming and it is an annoying process. Instead, Stack Overflow also has options of getting my basic details about my name, email, and obviously I don't have to store any password details with Stack Overflow because I always interact with the Google or GitHub or Facebook. So in this scenario, I'll try to sign up using Google. So as soon as I click sign up with Google, you can see the page has been redirected. The Stack Overflow is never asking me to enter my credentials in their website because they're delegating that authentication and authorization to actual vendor itself, in this scenario, which is Google. And you can also see it is following OAuth2 and there is a client ID. The purpose of client ID is, so in this scenario, the client is Stack Overflow, the resource owner or user is me, and the auth server and the resource server is the Google. So whenever someone want to use the Google auth servers and resource servers to get the basic details, first they have to register themselves. First, Stack Overflow has to reach out to the Google developer community or Google developer website, register themselves, where they will get a client ID and client secret which they can use over this OAuth2 flow. Due to this client ID, you can see Google detected that I'm getting a request from stackauth.com. So now I'll enter my Gmail here and Google is trying to asking me to prove my identity by logging into my mobile and approving the authentication request. I did it and you can see now the redirection will happen from Google to Stack Overflow. Now Stack Overflow has all the basic details about me, like what is my name, what is my email, all those basic details it got from the Google Auth server. So this way, all the four components involved in the OAuth2 flow will interact with each other to make a smooth and successful authentication and authorization flow. And based upon the scenario, we have different flavors of OAuth2 flow. Like the flavor that right now we saw is one of the flavor, but we have 5 different flavors where OAuth2 will follow to issue a token and validate the tokens during the authentication and authorization flow. Depending on the scenario that you are into, you can leverage any of these flows, and all these flows have their own advantages and disadvantages, and obviously you have to wise enough to choose the most optimum one for your application scenario. I hope now you have some clear understanding what is OAuth2 flow and what are different components involved. In the next lecture, we will look into the most common grant type, which is authorization code. Thank you and see you in the next video. Bye.